I call it my miscellaneous drawer. It is the bottom drawer of my set of drawers in my bedroom. And, it's just whenever I have some sort of random object that I don't know where it goes, I say, do you know what? I'll just put it in my drawer and obviously fully intend to come back to it someday to organize it properly. And it's probably about once a year that I say to myself, do you know what? Today's the day, actually. Today's the day I'm going to sort out that miscellaneous drawer. And it always starts, I'm very hopeful. I love the idea of having it all organized. And obviously, I expect that it's going to take 2 hours. And then what ends up happening is I open the drawer, and by the time I've sorted out all of the batteries and figured out which ones are used and which ones are new, that's already taken 2 hours. Yeah. And then I have quite a lot of sports day medals that I won in 1998, and I have to figure out if I'm going to keep them or throw them out. It's really hard to throw them out. I really don't want to. Then there's a sewing kit and a nail clippers and everything I've ever won in a Christmas cracker. My birth certificate, a lot of ribbons. It's just so many ribbons. The social housing application form that I've been intending to fill out for 3 years, and really quite a lot of Nokia phones. And it's normally after maybe 3 or 4 hours. I get distracted, I need a break, so I go onto Instagram. And on Instagram, the first person who'll always pop up is Michelle. She's a friend of mine from school. She was head girl in school, now she's a barrister. And the photo, it's just her in the most perfect suit you've ever seen, photographed outside the criminal courts, beside the Minister for Justice, because she's just won some case that's enhanced the human rights of Ireland, And then when I go back to my drawer, the next thing I find is a box. And inside the box, it's just full of fake mustaches. And inevitably, what happens is it's 12 hours later, I find myself naked on my bedroom floor, holding a fridge magnet, saying the word Barcelona. When Cormac asked me to do this TEDx talk, I was really excited. I thought, God, and as a comedian, as an artist, a storyteller, performer, I thought it's really exciting to get an opportunity to tell a story in a different way with a different audience. And I thought, do you know what I'd love to talk about today is my cup. I call it my cup of fuckles, right? So basically, I do a lot of work that promotes the Irish language. I do a lot of bilingual comedy, bilingual performance, but I've also started doing what I call guerrilla Gaeilge. And I go around with this cup, my cup of fuckles. So fuckle is the Irish word for word. So it's a cup full of words. I go around, I pop up in random places like cafes and libraries, or I just walk around the streets, and I ask strangers if they'd like a fuckle. And so I thought it would be great to talk about my cup today. But then I thought, you know what would be even better to talk about is the book I'm writing about the cup. Because basically, I've been doing this for 2 years now. And I've just met so many people. I've had so many fun encounters along the way, so many interesting experiences. I thought it'd be great to talk about the cup. But then I thought, no, do you know what would be better than that? If I talk about the time I specifically spoke to the woman who picked out the word Orlor from the cup, right? And she picked out Orlor, and she immediately went, flop, and she stopped herself. And it was just this beautiful interaction where she was my kind of ideal audience to talk to, because she was nervous about her Irish, but she knew that Orlor meant floor. So after a couple of minutes, we ended up just having a really interesting chat about the word floor. She was more confident about her Irish. But then I thought, no, do you know what would be better than that? If I tell a story about the time the guy picked Pion Louis out of the cup, and God, you've never heard two people laugh about the word pencil in your life, you know. And then I thought, no, do you know what would be better than that? If I tell the story about when I went to Inisheer, one of the Aran Islands, and I brought me cup, and I ended up, because of the cup, I went on a date accidentally with a woman who lived there. I thought that'd be a good story to tell. Or I also have a really good story about mustard. So it came to the point when I had to have my feedback session with the TEDx people. And the feedback I got was that I'm a long way away from telling a coherent story, and I'm making no obvious point. But I think the thing about my drawer and my cup, or let's actually call it my creative process, is in a way they're quite similar. Because I always start in the same way, with this beautiful hope and excitement, and I love the idea of the finished story. But the problem is, once I get into it and once I start doing it, it gets very messy very quickly. I really start to doubt myself. I don't believe that I can actually do it, and I start to compare myself to Michelle a lot. But the truth is, and it's scary for me to admit this, but I really do genuinely want to write a book about my cup. It has actually been a genuinely very exciting artistic endeavor for me, and I have genuinely gathered countless stories at this stage. And I've even started writing some of them. But I think the biggest problem for me is that too often I get scared. I can be scared to take myself seriously, but then I think I also get scared to commit to an idea because I'm going to have to stop thinking in this scattered way that I think and actually commit to it. And then within that commitment, I have to enter that messy, uncomfortable phase where I'm going to doubt myself and things are going to stop making sense. And then it's going to get to the point where I have a choice. I can either kind of decide to quit and just put the idea in a drawer somewhere and put it away, or I can actually share the idea with someone. And that's a really scary part of the process. The only thing I can kind of describe it to, it's as if you would have to actually describe to someone why you are naked on your bedroom floor holding a magnet that you never gave to your parents. Like, why did you go to Barcelona 5 years ago and why did you never give your parents the magnet? You know, it's really hard to explain. But I think what I'm kind of coming to understand about the artistic process, or certainly my artistic process, is that it is just by its very nature messy and uncomfortable. And I just really have to find a way to kind of sit in it and trust myself and somehow get to the other side. And something I've noticed about the drawer is that actually every time I go to organize it, the same thing happens, right? Obviously, we know how it ends, but then I need to go to sleep, you know? But I go to my bed, and my bed is covered in things that have come out of the drawer. So I put everything back in the drawer, yeah? But the thing is, and this is what I've come to realize, is even in this whole process, there's always one thing that comes out of it. So I've started to understand, actually, me organizing my drawer, this is kind of a process I go through once a year. It's a ritual I have, you know. And I'm accepting that even though it feels messy, something comes out of it. I've kind of started to look forward to organizing my drawer. We're kind of pals. I call her Susan now. But the last time I organized my drawer, I found those mustaches. And those mustaches reminded me that I can actually do it. Like, I can write a book because I've actually done it before. It's called TEDxGalway, learn Irish with Lionel. Yeah. Yeah. Siobhan left it off her list. I don't know why she didn't think of it. Yeah. Thank you. Cunas, let the whole Gurmagan. But no, this is a book, you won't actually find it in the shops. You'll probably only see it if you come to one of my live shows. But obviously, TEDxGalway is Hello, Learn Irish with Lionel. It's a book I wrote about making Irish fun and learning vocab with Lionel Richie. A few pages are obviously, the most obvious is Cromale, yes, for mustache. And then we see Cleavrach Grugach, which means hairy chest, yeah. And obviously, I've used the hair from the mustaches for the chest hair there. And then you see this one, Oscar Grugach, no, Nahaskala Grugach. So that's hairy armpit, or for two or more, it's hairy armpits. Yes, and again, I've used the hair for the armpit hair. I've even written another book, would you believe? It's called Tay and Lionel Gaspas. Yeah. Yeah. So, look, I suppose to finish up, what I'd really like to say is I can't share my book about my cup with you today, my cup. But I'd also like to say that I'm understanding much more about my creative process. I understand how hard it's going to be, but I want to pledge when I'm here now today that I will one day stand here and tell you a story about the book about my cup. And thank you. The tagline will be one woman's journey to give everyone in Ireland a fuckle. Thank you.